Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session of Teaching the Teen Brain. Today, we're going to start with looking at what adolescence is, while also exploring some different things that teens go through during adolescence, while also finishing up with what happens when those things get in the way of the teens being able to learn. So let's start with, what is adolescence? Adolescence is a period of transition between childhood and adulthood, when you're not the child that you once were, you're not what you were when you were in elementary school, you're not completely reliant on your parents, but you're also not fully an adult yet. You can't go out on your own, you can't make decisions on your own, you are still developing. Adolescence can be a range of ages between 10 and 25, so it can start as early as 4th grade and go all the way up until a few years out of college age. There's no real consensus about the age range, so you'll often see anything between 10 to 25. Some people will say it's only age 13 to 20, or 13 to 22, or maybe 10 to 22, but some will say that it's anywhere between 10 and 25. And we know this because when we've studied the brain, it's still developing well into the 20s. Your frontal cortex that involves judgment doesn't fully connect to the rest of your brain, doesn't fully communicate with the rest of your brain until around the age of 25. So you're not fully able to view things as an adult and process things as other adults are until about the age of 25, which is why a lot of people will say adolescence goes to the age of 25. However, this throws teens in a very unique and challenging situation. Their brain is not a child's brain. They have many things that they want to do and many things that they feel they can do and need to learn to do, but their brain hasn't yet learned how to do it. It's not a child's brain, but it's not an adult brain yet. And looking at this age range, that means about half the time our students are with us, K through 12, is spent with us during adolescence. Some might even say it might be even longer than that, since if we start at the age of 10, then only kindergarten through 3rd grade would not be considered adolescence. 4th through 12th would be considered adolescence. So it's very important to understand the adolescent brain, because most of the time that we will spend with our students will be spent with them in adolescence. So let's look at this teen brain. What are some defining features of it? Well, many features of the teen brain that you will see are they constantly want to push boundaries, they have trouble with impulse control and risk-taking, trouble with judgment, seeing what's ahead, thinking out what the consequences of their actions will be, identity, self-worth. Many things that a lot of adults have come to accept, but that teenagers haven't had a chance to really process yet. So you will see in the teen brain, there are a lot of conflicting wants, desires, thoughts, and emotions. They want to do something, but they're not sure how to, but they don't want to be viewed as a child, so they want to do it on their own, and they're afraid to ask for help, but they know they need for help, and it's just a constant cycle of these conflicting wants and desires for, like, impulse control, not wanting to do something, but then really knowing they shouldn't do something, but then knowing that they want to do something and not being able to control themselves, risk-taking, doing things that are extremely risky without thinking through the consequences of them, continuous identity development. Some adults even have continuous identity development as they constantly reinvent themselves. But you especially see it in the teenage brain, which we'll get to later, why there's a big identity crisis in the teenage brain. You will also find that along with the identity and wanting to be viewed as their own person, wanting to develop into an adult, you'll see a conflict of students trying to figure out how to do something on their own and constantly pushing away from adults to try to help them or tell them whether it's a good or bad idea. Yet at the same time, maybe even moments later, hear messages that they now need your help and they want you to tell them whether it's a good idea or help them process something. So you have a constant fluctuation back and forth of, how do I do this? I don't know. I don't want help. Well, now I do want help, but I only want a little bit of help. Okay, now I want a lot of help. Okay, I'm done with your help. I'm done with your help now, so you can go away now because I don't need you anymore. So teens are very complicated, and a lot of times the teenage brain itself doesn't even know what it wants. So one thing that can help kind of quantify what's going on in the teenage brain is several years ago, Professor Robert Havahurst from the University of Chicago came up with this idea that there are definite stages in human development that are best viewed in terms of developmental tasks that are part of transition from childhood through adolescence to adulthood. He identified 11 of these, and some of these are combined into one thought on here, but we'll be going through the individual 11. So the first is the adolescent has to adjust to a new physical sense of themselves. When they're born and they're a child, parents help them with everything, and they grow and parents help them with the changes going on around the world, developing their own identity of self through them. But once we start puberty, you get rapid height, rapid weight, rapid changes in body chemistry, in the wiring of the brain, in social changes, all these different changes going on around them in their social circles, in the world, and also in their own body. So the adolescents must adjust to this new idea of themselves. They no longer look like a child, but they are definitely not looking like an adult. And oftentimes, this leads them to focus on the change in their own body, which they will have to eventually come to a new personal identity, which is a couple points down. They also have to adjust to their new intellectual abilities. When they're a child, their brain tends to go for more concrete ideas. This is the way something is. This is why it is. And they tend to accept that. Sometimes not when they're going through their terrible twos and they ask all the why questions. But especially in the early years, they ask the teacher why something is. And whatever answer the teacher gives, the child tends to accept. However, once you start developing into the adolescent brain, you're able to start processing more abstract ideas, more, this is the way something is. Well, why is it that way? Does it have to be that way? What are some better ways that we could think of doing it? And they're able to process those ideas a little bit more on their own. Of course, early in adolescence, they need much more help and much more simple abstract ideas, such as give them a concrete idea, and then, well, what's another way we could do this? And get them just slightly off the concrete path. But as they age, as they get older, you can start to deviate more and more into the synthesis of new ideas and the critiquing of new ideas and whether they think this brand new idea is a good idea or not. And they have to come to an understanding of their new abilities, and they have to be able to develop their new abilities. They also have to adjust to increasing cognitive demands at school. Along with the increased intellectual abilities of their brain, schools should also push these new abilities. So while they have to adjust to what they can do, they also have to adjust to these new demands school place on them, because we know you're developing these new ideas. We're going to push you through the development. We're going to help you develop your more abstract thinking, more synthesis and critiquing and evaluation of ideas. They also have to develop more concrete verbal skills with this as well. As they're developing, being able to critique and synthesize ideas, they have to be able to communicate their ideas a little bit better. As from birth up through death, hopefully, vocabulary constantly needs to expand. However, during adolescence, you're moving from your childlike thinking into adult thinking. So you're going to need a rapid expansion of new ideas as you try to present these more adult-like ideas. You're going to need more adult-like language. You also need to develop your own personal sense of identity. When you are younger, you are your parent's son. But as you develop into adolescence, as you develop into adulthood, you need to develop your own sense of who am I, such as myself. When I was a kid, I was Bruce's son, Brett. But as I developed into an adult, it developed less of Bruce's son and more of Brett, his own person. I no longer viewed myself as an extension of, well, my dad's like this, so I'm going to act like dad does. It's now, I'm my own person, and I can model my behavior off my dad, but I don't have to develop and think and act the same way that he does. I am not my dad, and I am going to start diverging away from the identity of my father. So they start wrestling with questions such as, what does it mean to be me? And especially, who am I? You need to know who you are before you can start questioning, what does it mean to be what I am? This is why you will often see, if there are questions of homosexuality or bisexuality or diverging away from parents' philosophical or religious ideas, you'll often see it in this time as they start to develop their own identity, not based off what their parents say they are or should be, but off of what they want to be. You also start to develop more adult vocational goals at this age as well. You start to look at, I'm going to be an adult within the next 10 years. Where do I see myself wanting to spend the rest of my life? What do I want to do after I graduate high school? Do I want to go into college? Do I want to become a welder? Do I want to go into computer programming? Do I want to become a career soldier? What is it that I want to do once I leave high school and leave my parents' house? So as you're developing these vocational goals and your own sense of identity, the adolescent will also start to develop emotional and psychological independence as well. So instead of always sticking with your parents and always saying, well, my dad says that it's this way, or my mom said that it was this way, you start to develop more independence of, just because mom and dad say that it's this way doesn't mean that it has to be this way. And I think it should be this way, so I want it to be this way. So this is where you start to really see what is often viewed as like the rebellious child, or teens disrespecting their parents and being bad children. It's not so much that as it is they're wanting to develop their own sense of identity. And in doing that, they start to push against the boundaries their parents have pushed on their personality and on their person. And they start to push of, this is what my parents have raised me as. Well, I'm going to start pushing this way because I want to do this way. Or I want to take a risk this way because I want to explore over here. And so it can be viewed as separating away from their parents, but it's now better to view it as teens wanting more autonomy, more ability to choose what they do instead of being told, here's what the family's going to do, here's what you're going to do. They have more choice of, who do you want to hang out with now? What do you want to watch? What do you want to see? How do you want to live your life? And obviously, you don't want to give the teen just complete, you choose how to live your life and we'll sit back and you run your life however. However, it is not a good idea to say, we're the parents, here are your boundaries, you're not allowed to push against them at all. A little bit of autonomy and slowly helping them become more and more independent is the best way to help them develop emotional and psychological independence from the parents. But as they develop their own identity and individualism, their peers, their friends are also doing the same thing. So you see a lot of struggling in the development of peers and social structure during this time as well. Friendships that have existed since the age of 3 all of a sudden fall apart for minuscule, what seems to us, minuscule reasons. But to the teen, this is where they draw the line. Something happened in the relationship that at that point cannot be salvaged, and they are done with the relationship, and it may or may not be repaired in the future. But as they develop more independence, that independence will start to structure what peer group they hang out with. People who are developing identities in the same direction will tend to group together. Even if in elementary school they were hanging out together, if they start developing in different directions, then that happens. I had a best friend from kindergarten through about 6th or 7th grade. But once we got into later middle school and then into high school, we started slowly diverging, and we talked less and less. And now, even though we're friends on Facebook, I haven't talked to him in probably close to 10 years because we developed into different paths, and our identities and our career paths and where we wanted to go in life saw us going in separate ways, and we found we no longer had anything of interest. And as I mentioned before, along with the supportive peer relationships, there will also be a development into managing the teen's sexuality. You will see an increased interest in exploring sexual relations with other people. You will see exploring possibly relationships with the same gender or other genders, or possibly both genders, or something else entirely. But this is where you start to develop their idea of, who am I sexually? What am I attracted to? Who am I attracted to? How do I view myself in terms of masculinity or femininity? Do I view myself in terms of what my biological sex is? Or do I see myself as a different gender than what my biological sex is? And all of this has to be explored as they develop their own sense of identity. And finally, they have to develop their own personal value system, responsibilities, maturity, roles. What do they view as important? What do they view as, this is good, this is bad, this is something that should be wanted and strived for and achieved, and this is something that should be avoided and not develop time and resources into. This is kind of along with viewing, like I said, you might see a split in how they view religion, because as their personal value system changes, if that no longer aligns with what they feel is right and wrong, no longer aligns with what religious teachings are telling them, they might start rebelling against the religious teachings and saying, well, I feel this is this way, you tell me it isn't, so I'm not going to listen to you because my personal value system and my morals say it's this way. And along with developing a personal value system, they also must develop increased impulse control and behavioral maturity, knowing what's good and bad, what's right and wrong. Sometimes they might know what's right and wrong, but they have trouble not doing the wrong thing. Problems, especially with like peer pressure, knowing I shouldn't do this, but all my friends are doing this, and I'm much more inclined to go and do this thing even though they know it's not right to do. And so this is where having a healthy parental or guardian relationship who they can talk to them about, here's what I think is right and wrong, but I'm having trouble with saying no, I shouldn't do this to my friends or to even myself. And they can talk with the parent, and the parent can help them deal with, here's what you know is right and wrong, and here's what you can do to make sure that you always follow what you know is right and wrong. And obviously, they're not going to always follow that, which is important to then have a healthy way that they can learn to fail in place, but that is a later slide, I believe. Yes. Next slide. Appropriate defines learning the difference between expanding and defying, and open like rebellion and disrespect. Learning that it's okay to challenge those in authority if you do it in a respectful way. If you go to your parents, tell them, hey, I'm going out, I'm doing this, I really don't care what you say, this is what I'm going to do, and I won't follow any of your rules. That is not an appropriate way to say that you don't agree with their rules and the boundaries they placed. And it is good to teach them that you can, if you do it respectfully, you can ask that the boundaries and the rules be changed. That sometimes you have to push your boundaries and say, when I was a child, you set these boundaries for me. I'm developing into an adult. I would like a chance to start pushing those boundaries and be able to develop more independence and choice of what I do and what I say and what I think and how I present myself. But there also has to be a good way that they can learn to fail, that not all their choices will be good choices. And there has to be a system in place that when they fail, the parent or guardian can help them realize that you made a choice or you did or said something, it didn't work out. What are we going to do to remedy that for the next time that this comes up? And that will help them develop so that when they fail in life, which is guaranteed that they will fail at some things in life, they're not going to get stuck in that failure. They're going to pick themselves up and they're going to know, here's what I need to do to resolve that now or for the next time this happens. And then they go about implementing that plan. It's kind of like a dance that you have to, the parent and guardian, which can be sometimes a teacher. A guardian can be any adult person in their life. It's not really wise to have someone who is still at the later ages of adolescence, which is kind of ironic as some of the younger teachers just coming out of college will be in that later stage of adolescence, still age 22 or 23. So hopefully there will also be another person that they can go to get help if they feel they need it. Or if it's an older teacher, the student can go to them and ask them. But it's like teaching is often like dancing in that it's a give and a take from the student. You have to work together. Sometimes the teacher leads. Sometimes it's time for the teacher to step back and either let the student lead or the student go out and do something completely on their own. But what happens when the dance gets interrupted? What happens when something happens in your brain that you just can't process at the time? Oftentimes we see that viewed in a physical way through a tantrum, through just your brain can't process it, so it releases all the emotions at once, and you just have a complete emotional, psychological, and sometimes physical breakdown. We often see this in toddlers and young children as they're starting to develop from being completely taken care of to only having to kind of shadow along with the parents, but still them wanting to develop a little bit of who they are. So you would also expect to see this a little bit in teens as well. Maybe not the physical as much, hopefully, but certainly the mental and emotional tantrum of just sometimes yelling, screaming, just completely loss of emotional, possibly just head down, just crying, sobbing, just being completely unable to function at the moment. This often will happen as they're discovering, trying to figure out new skills, or if they've come up against a barrier that they haven't learned how to overcome yet. And the barrier is just, they haven't figured out how to overcome it yet, and they're just pushing against it, and they eventually just break down. So it's good to help them experiment to figure out limits and what to do with the learning to fail, that they failed, but instead of having a tantrum and that they can't overcome that, learning what do we do to either overcome it the next time, or what can we do to make sure that this barrier isn't put up? What can we do to avoid the barrier completely? So hopefully you have learned quite a bit about adolescence and development of the teen brain and different stages that the teen brain can go through. Up next would be the actual physical changes that go through the brain and how the brain actually develops as you go from childhood